And I would argue that that's going to make your X a better gaming machine in general, whereas your Series S is going to be better for general use. Why did Microsoft even make the Xbox Series S? Because it's not like it's something that we actually needed. And in the days when these consoles were brand new in 2020, a lot of people complained that they couldn't get their hand on a Series X because there were too many productions happening with the Series S, therefore they did not have the resources to put into the X, which is the console that people really wanted. Because while the consoles are really different, they actually have a lot of similarities as well. This is a simple comparison here on IGN talking about the main hardware differences between your Series X and your Series S. Of course, number one is the price, and then the one that everybody thinks of first is the optical drive. You've got 16 gigs of RAM on the Series X and only 10 on the Series S. Your memory bandwidth is 10 gigs at 560 or 8 gigs at 224 for the Series S, 6 gigs at 335, and only 2 gigs at 56. So clearly the Series X for memory, for RAM, for your app overhead is actually a lot more powerful. And here's something that maybe you don't know. The GPU is a custom AMD Radeon. So the GPUs on both of these series actually are pretty similar. The Series X will do 12 teraflops, 52 CUs at 1.825 gigahertz. Your Series S is going to have the same type of processor, but it's only going to do 4 teraflops at 20 CUs at 1.55 gigahertz. So it's not quite as fast. Both of these consoles are going to support ray tracing. The rest of this is going to be really similar. The data transfer speeds, the storage options, your external storage options, with the main difference for this of course being a terabyte on the X and just 512 natively before the actual update on this Series S. So Microsoft announces the Xbox Series X. It's going to completely compete with or be better than the PlayStation 5, and then they also announce a lesser console, the Xbox Series S, that is clearly underpowered when compared to its big brother. And this is really unique for Microsoft. They haven't done this in the past. So they did something similar to this with the Xbox 360 when you had your standard edition versus your elite edition. And then they kind of did it again where they had the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, and then the Xbox One X. So rather than starting at a core console, hey, if you guys like these videos and you find them informative and helpful, take a second and consider hitting that little subscribe button down there. It really does help out the channel and spread the word. And then branching out like they did, I think Microsoft thought, hey, instead of doing this mid-game, mid-gen refresher, why don't we just develop these two systems and put them out at the same time? So what was their actual intention behind this? Well, number one is price. Of course, the Xbox Series X is $500 and the S is only $300. And if you're a kid trying to convince your parents that you need a new Xbox, it is much easier to convince them at a $300 price tag than it is at a $500 price tag. So one of the reasons I think is definitely price. You've introduced a next-gen console to compete with the PS5 that's $200 cheaper. Now, of course, it's lacking some things when compared to its big brother. It's not quite as powerful. It doesn't have a disk drive on there, but it's going to do all of the things that you need your Xbox to do, especially if you're a younger generation player. If I really needed a disk drive and I wanted to get the highest performance out of a console, I would just go down to the store with my adult money and just buy the console that I want. And let's be honest, for the most part, it's going to be older gamers like myself that grew up with putting a physical disc inside of your Xbox that are going to want that feature. I remember when the Xbox One was first being announced and Microsoft said that there was going to be digital only. I was at work when my coworker told me about this and I about pitched a fit. I could not believe that we had gotten to the point where there were not going to be any more physical disc games. Of course, fast forward 7 years later and here I am with an Xbox Series S that doesn't have a physical disc drive, and I'll be honest, I really don't miss it very much. It's nice to own all your games in a physical condition, however, it's not really necessary for the way that Microsoft and Sony and any other game developers are really pushing the video game industry. And since Microsoft has stated that all of the games on Series X are going to run just as good as on the Series S, the next big thing that we actually get to is going to be this 4K native support right here. Both consoles claim that they can do 120 frames per second. Of course, that is always dependent on the actual software that you're running on your system. Your Series X is going to support the just natively. It's not going to do any type of upscaling like the Series S actually has to do. And I would argue that that's going to make your X a better gaming machine in general, whereas your Series S is going to be better for general use. So you're streaming your Netflix and your Freevee and your Hulu and all that stuff, because it will stream all that content at 4K. One improvement that I wish Microsoft would do when it comes to the more powerful Series X is develop games with two different options. One option that would be optimized for Series X that's going to run your games at 4K 120 frames per second. And then your second option, which should be detectable straight from the console, is for the Series S that is going to downscale that so you're still getting a great gameplay, but not overburdening the system. So if the Series X can handle a higher frame rate and a higher 4K resolution, I think that it should not be restricted and use its full potential. Of course, the second piece to the puzzle is you have to have a 4K TV to actually even get these resolutions to begin with. I know the 4K is rapidly becoming the standard for just resolutions on your screen, but it's not the standard yet, which means that a lot of people are only going to have 1080, and I think Microsoft knew this at the year that they are actually putting out these consoles back there in 2020. 4K not being the standard meant that there was a better option if people just didn't need it, that they could get a cheaper console that's still going to get their Xbox gaming needs covered. They didn't have to invest into a 4K TV if they just weren't ready for one. And higher resolution makes a lot more sense if it's on a bigger screen and you're actually sitting further away. Sitting up super close to a screen at 4K, you're gonna still notice pixelizations. But I use my 1080p monitors like the one that you guys can't see right now, and everything looks super crisp and super sharp on this monitor. Your data transfer speeds are the same, your quick resume is the same, your USB, your wired and wireless connections, it's all the same on this. So really the last major thing you have to consider is storage space. And now that Microsoft has announced that there is going to be a 1TB edition for the Series S, that actually tells me something as well. It tells me that Microsoft is still seeing really good sales of their Series S, so much so that they've decided to do a mid-gen refresher for their diskless console and put in a larger hard drive because they know that more people are getting used to this idea of not having a disk. As somebody who is staunch about not getting rid of disks, I actually start to see more and more that they're just not needed. The disk is almost acting like your old Windows PC games where even though you had installed the game, you had to put the disk in there just so it would know that you have a legal license to play it. And of course, Microsoft has been pushing the games as a service, the cloud gaming, the Game Pass for quite a while now. And I can see that by giving the Xbox Series S more space, they are pushing even further into that, and that's where they expect their future to be. So why did Microsoft decide to make this Stormtrooper edition when we already have the Darth Vader edition of the latest Xbox? It's a balance of affordability and accessibility. Microsoft wants people to have their Xboxes. And if they can give people a good enough product that they will still subscribe to their Xbox ecosystem, then that is what they are going to do. A lot of people say that this console holds back the Xbox Series X, but I think Microsoft was really smart with this. They know that not everybody has $500 to drop on a console. They know that not everybody is a hardcore gamer that absolutely has to have 4K at 120 frames per second. And they know that if they can get the exact same games on the Series X and on the Series S, and they can keep this affordable and give it some improvements, that this is going to be a stellar way to keep people on their Xbox ecosystem, pushing things like Game Pass and cloud gaming. It's cheaper, it's smaller, it uses all the same hardware, it has all the same backwards compatibility, it's about 90% as good as your big brother. And in all honesty, for us normal folk, that is good enough. Hey, thanks for tuning into my channel. If you guys like these videos, you can check out another one of them right here.